All right, thank you. So now we'll call the meeting to order. Do we have any public comments? No, we do not have any public comments. So let me start by saying welcome, everybody. It's good to see you. We're going to go around the room and do introductions, and we have a number of people joining us virtually as well. So we'll do in the room first, and then online. I know that's backwards, but we'll start that way anyway. So I'm Wendy Crawford. I'm currently the chair of the Community Services Board.
Hi, I'm Deborah Warren, and I'm the Deputy Director of Human Services in the CSB.
Hi, my name is Rubal Alfaro. I am the Administrative Officer of the Behavioral Health Care Division.
Welcome.
Hello, Joe Clem, co-chair of the Mental Health
Burgess McGann, member of the DD Committee.
Steve Gallagher, co-chair of the Mental Health Committee.
Dory Mitchell, Mental Health Committee. Ann Herman, Mental Health Committee. Jeanette O'Keefe, Substance Use Disorder Committee.
Paul Kalkbrenner, chair of the Substance Use Disorder Committee.
Suzanne Joy, member of the Youth and Family Subcommittee.
Kelly Muller, Executive Assistant to Deborah, very frazzled CSB liaison.
We're very grateful, Kelly. So can we, I'm not sure, let's start with Ollie, and then I can't read all of the names, so I need some help calling on folks. Can you start by introduction? Hi, Ollie. Oh, they can't see us.
Ollie, we can't hear you.
You're muted.
I made it through the entire day without doing that. That's terrible. Okay. Ollie Russell, Assistant Director for Behavioral Health, liaison to the board, and currently on assignment in Emergency Services.
Anna Strasburger. Thank you.
I'm Anna Strasburger, Mental Health Committee.
Thank you. I see Sherry. Sherry, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Sherry Takamoto. I'm chair of the DD committee and member of the CSB.
Thank you. And I think the rest are staff. So Brian Vickers.
Very good. Yeah, that's me, Brian Vickers, Quality Assurance Analyst for the CSB.
Thank you. And Michael Dharma.
Hi, everyone. Michael Dharma Irwin, DHS Quality Assurance Manager, and sometimes tech support.
Thank you. Very appreciated. And then Angela.
Hi, I'm Captain Angie Souter. I'm with the Sheriff's Office, and I'm the Assistant Director of Administration.
Thank you so much. I think that's everyone. Is there anyone who hasn't introduced themselves? No. Okay. Thank you, everyone. We have a really full agenda, so we're going to jump in and start this evening with a presentation from staff on the mid-year state performance contract. And I believe, Brian, are you leading us off with that?
I am leading off, yes. So thank you all for joining. Let me know if the screen is showing.
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. So performance contract, similar stick to the previous times I've shown you. This is the mid-year, which means that it's representing from July 1st, 2023 to now. You guys should have an extra handout in front of you guys based on your excellent recommendation. We created a little glossary about some of the programs and services at our agency that filter up into it, and we'll talk about that. But to go through the performance contract, my usual spiel, it is the Department of Behavioral Health and Disability Services vehicle for assessing utilization and services at each CSB and the amount of demand for programs. Basically, it's how they calculate up everything we do. It links services and financing so we can see the cost of services by unit. There are two types of units we'll discuss: hours of service and bed days. Programs fall into one of the two categories. An hour of service would be an hour of service. So you do an hour of therapy, that counts as one unit for a therapy type service. Some services are what we term bed day services. That means that a unit of one would mean one bed day. Those are residential facilities. So if we help house someone in a bed in a specific place, like our withdrawal program, one day at that facility would be 1 unit. So that's something to keep in mind as we look at these. We'll identify which ones are bed days and service hours. The contract is divided into 4 program areas. The first of those we'll go through is emergency and ancillary services. That's sort of a catch-all. Most of it's emergency services, but it's a couple of unique programs as well, including assessment and evaluation. Developmental disability services is what it sounds like. It's our developmental disability services. The mental health services are going to be a variety of things all around mental health diagnoses, substance use services, a whole bunch of services around substance use diagnoses. Many of our clients may be in one or the other. The state taxonomy is very rigid that things are mental health or substance use. We know that the work doesn't always flow that way, but it is how we categorize things when we send them to the state. Within each program area, services are classified into core services defined by a taxonomy. Lots of words. Basically, the state says, look, is it therapy? And we go, yes, but there's all sorts of different types of therapy. And the state goes, just tell me that it's therapy. So that is what would be the core service, would be therapy. So that's that. Mid-year updates. The mid-year update is that there's not much of an update. There's not a whole lot of shock in our numbers, which is a good thing. Units of service are about where we projected. Things have been these have been a relatively stable 2 quarters for agency performance. It's about where we expected. While there have been many challenges, including some significant staff turnover and vacancies, there have also been opportunities as some of our partner organizations have loosened their pandemic requirements. We've been able to see some more clients in person. So these 2 factors kind of balance each other out a little bit for this quarter, which is how we kind of saw some of that stability. I'm going to quickly talk about reading these next couple of slides. This is the format I use. In this left-hand column here, this is what is termed the core service. That's the state's term. So it'll have a number, which is how I think of the services because I spend all day in spreadsheets, and then the name of the service, which sometimes is not the most explanatory. And that's when we would recommend you pull out your handy dandy little worksheet we gave you guys with the definitions of what's in each service taxonomy. That's a good way to kind of interpret and understand those. That's our first column. Our second column here is the units and clients from the previous year, so the FY 2022, which would be July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022. This middle column is highlighted in gold. That's the important one. That's the number of units and clients so far this mid-year. That'd be July 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2022. Final column, or third column, is the projection. That is how many units we projected for the entire year. So July 1st of 2022 through June 30th of 2023. So what you'll notice, this column and this column are going to be much bigger than the middle column, usually. That's because they represent full year values, while the middle column gives us half years. Because of that, we have this percentage of projected units column here at the end, and we think this is kind of a good reference. It's what we use. It shows how many of the year's projected units have been delivered. So there's a bunch of what we term seasonality. That means things aren't exactly linear. Things aren't exactly straight throughout the entire year. We expect some fluctuation. Because of that, anywhere from 40% of service units given to 60% of service units given would be expected. If it fell within that range, basically, I wasn't worried about it. If it went dramatically over or dramatically under, those are potential areas for concern. Either are we accurately reporting things? Did something change? And so those will be some of the pieces we highlight, especially over here in this blue highlight section. That's the organization of the report. As a note, this projection is going percentage of projected units. We do units, not clients, because in general, we see a bunch of the same units, clients throughout the entire year. So clients as a number will rise faster than units. Units is the one that should rise, be at about 40 to 60% at this point. Without further ado, let's get into the numbers. Emergency and ancillary services, this includes monitoring and intake as well. You'll note that we have the 4 core services here. All of these are defined as hours of service. I've added that to the bottom here. So what are the pieces? Well, ES is at about 39% of projected units, like a hair low. We think that that's due to some staffing challenges, while also potentially slightly less acute usage of the service as we sort of exit. We're not out of the pandemic, but we're out of the most critical fire burning part of the pandemic. So that's kind of why we think it's at that 39%. As a note, the new CIC is going to launch soon, and those services will be rolled into what we report for emergency services. The other kind of weird note here is consumer monitoring. Consumer monitoring is significantly lower at 20%. This is mostly a data quirk. A lot of what we put in consumer monitoring, we're now coding in assessment and evaluation. And that's because it's happening for clients who are in that assessment phase, kind of as they're working on transitioning to an ongoing team. The number of hours of service have not actually decreased in terms of what's been done in terms of actual consumer monitoring work. But what we're reporting in 390 has gone down. Those services are being reported in 720. So if you're looking at this report, this 51% is actually, I would say, a little high for assessment and evaluation. They're more in the mid to upper 40s. Still kind of within the range where we would expect, but not quite as high as reported here. So you can think of it, when we do our projections next year, we're going to project this one a little higher and this one a little lower because of how we've reclassified services. I'm going to pause here. I know I've talked a lot. Any questions so far?
Brian, this is Joe. I just wanted to thank you for that cheat sheet that you gave us up front. I don't know if you gave us that in previous years or not, but that was really helpful.
That's new.
I'm glad I did not give it because you because I think you guys had mentioned it a couple times, and the last time you guys were like, we really need this. I made it, and like, you guys were right. You really needed this, so I appreciate that.
Fantastic. Thank you.
We see no other questions, Brian.
All right,
at this
we'll
point.
move on to developmental disability services. So there's a lot on here. This chart has both the service hour and bed day services, 521 and 551 being your bed day services. So what do we see here? Obviously, the biggest thing that calls out to you is rehabilitation, and those are our habilitation services, DDS habilitation. Those dramatically skyrocketed. The reason for that is those really represent the day program, and those are moving out of some of those pandemic protocols, allowing more clients more access, leading to a higher number of hours. So we're kind of beating our projections there, which were a little more limited because we were sort of still thinking it might be more affected by the pandemic than it ended up being, which is a good thing. The other thing to note are the supported employment. So 460 individual supported employment and 465 group supported employment. We can think of them kind of together. Group supported employment, very high. Individual supported employment, very low. This is a factor of two things, or three things really. First, as an agency, talking to them, they say they go through their group supported employment funds first in terms of reporting. It's some sort of weird quirk with some of the grants they receive. They also got a new group funding for group supported employment in FY 2022, expanding that. And then finally, and there's just sort of more of a shift into that space where group supported employment is increasing. So while we expect when we come to you guys in the summer for the final numbers, that there will be an increase in individual supported employment, we still think it'll be substantially lower in terms of numbers of units compared to group supported employment, where the majority of DD time is being spent right now. One last note, intensive residential services is high. It is a very low number, honestly. So the kind of fluctuation of, 500 to 800 hours adds, kind of triggers our alarm bells less. We've heard, though, that the reason for this is these are in-home services that we contract with, and our contractors may have more folks who feel more comfortable going and providing in-home services, again, sort of as some of those pandemic restrictions lessen. That's developmental disability services.
Any questions from the room?
I see Sherry raised her hand.
Oh, okay. Oh, thank you, Sherry.
Yes, just a question about residential services. So altogether, it appears that you have the 25 people in residential services. Are those only the locally funded folks?
I would have to look at the charts. I'm not 100% sure of that. I will admit developmental disabilities is the area I know the least. I can ask.
Thank you.
All right. All right, moving on to mental health. We'll talk about the outpatient. So these are all service hour units. These are all like exactly where you would expect them to be, kind of across the board. They're all close to 50%. Case management was a little higher. Reason for that, case management was a little down last year. We saw a little more therapy, a little less case management, so we projected a little less case management. These are all about where we'd expect them. Clarendon House is rehabilitation. You'll notice that in, they were at like 3,000 units last year. They've already exceeded that. The expectation is they're going to kind of hit where their projection was, which is not pre-COVID levels, but they're working towards it. They still had a number of challenges, some outbreaks, but they're working on expanding it to a healthier number from the Clarendon House team than we had seen in the prior year. I'll skip a slide. Mental health services residential. So these tables, for the most part, these are bed units of days in a residential facility. The exceptions to that are 420 and 581 supported residential, which are defined as hours. So stories here. I just got the word on ambulatory crisis stabilization services because I've been asking. These numbers have been plummeting. It's due to a change with our vendor in how many days our clients can be with ambulatory crisis stabilization services, or CR2 as it's sometimes referred to. That decrease in days and that sort of shortening of stays has dramatically lowered those hours from where they were previously. Intensive residential, that's going to be CRI's community residences. Why was that higher than expected? Well, there were a high volume of referrals for housing this past year, or past couple of months, leading to wait lists for other long-term housing options, such as group homes, assisted living, permanent supportive housing. To try to make sure that we were still serving these clients, we directed more to CRI. And then finally, supportive residential services, that's also higher than anticipated. And this is a data capture piece. Again, supportive residential is not a very large number of hours. So kind of a small shift in how we collect our data and kind of talking through people, make sure we're counting all the services we're paying for, really made the difference there. All right. On to substance use disorder services.
We have a question, Brian.
My apologies.
Could you just help me, I'm just trying to understand the, 521, CRI,
Yeah.
and you referenced the higher number and that there was more need and more were referred. I thought there was a finite number of beds, and if you're referring more than the number of beds, I'm not sure I just understand.
I think that, yes, so CRI does have a finite number of beds, is my understanding. I don't think we were fully utilizing CRI last year. But I think and I think part of that was pandemic shakeoff with the beds. But they have said they have seen an increased number of people looking for housing when I asked them.
We can, get some more clarification, Steve, on that, if you like. Yeah, I made a note.
There's been waiting lists too, you know, we've been getting at the mental health committee, Carol's been giving us the waiting list census.
Yeah.
So it seems a little, it's not clear, things are not clear.
Yeah, we'll have to get some clarification on that, Dory. And then with regard to the ambulatory crisis stabilization services, I know that there was a change in the Medicaid, the DMAS regulations for crisis stabilization, which has actually limited that service to something very specific. I can also get clarity on that, but that is an issue there for CR2.
As a general comment for pretty much all of these, I seem to recall from having done this a few times that I'm always craving a one-to-one ratio of these buckets to the county service buckets. But there's overlap. There's a lot of straddling going on, so
Yeah.
these categories and numbers come from the state, and they don't always map nicely to what we see as the county various services.
That is so true, Joe. I'm glad you brought that up because I'm on a number of state committees. One of the issues is that if you, going back to Brian's second slide, the way that the state performance contract divides up its services, there's 4 bullets: emergency and ancillary, developmental disability, mental health, and substance use disorder. But we know in real life, the people that we serve, often have co-occurring issues, like people don't divide into necessarily exclusively developmental disabilities and so on. So it's very hard for us because these fine individuals have to figure out how to take our information about real human beings and put it into the categories that the state is asking of us. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Did I say that right, Brian?
You said it perfectly. Yes, and the state is aware that these are outdated. Michael Dharma, myself, Ollie, we spend a lot of time on calls with the state. They're working on overhauling this. It's, I think, a large project. I don't know when it will get done, but there will be a moment where we're presenting these to you guys, and it's like, and suddenly everything's different and a little better, where it's a little more kind of modernized. But this is very much reflecting kind of a 1990s thinking of how services get filtered into buckets.
And so, you know, what you're saying is that if they make changes, let's say in the taxonomy or even the categories, that will have a profound impact on the state performance contract. Correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Exactly right. Because it would all filter down because the state basically is saying, how much are you spending in these categories that we defined in 1990? And they'll go, wait a minute, we want to understand it in these categories that we're defining in 2023, 2024. So I'm hopeful that it's going to, we're going to reflect things like, dual diagnosis services and, kind of more along that spectrum. So stay tuned. That'll come. But yes, as of right now, the state performance contract is still using the older taxonomy.
Right, thank you. Sorry for the interjection there.
All good questions.
I think we're on slide 9.
We are, yes. So substance use disorder services, these are outpatient ones. These are all hourly services. Again, kind of about where you would expect. Nothing shocking here. Biggest piece would be medication-assisted treatment. That's our opioid response team. So there's been an increase in OBOT services provided as they work to kind of combat opioids usage in Arlington. Additionally, there's been expansions in IOP programs, intensive outpatient. You'll see that there. There had been an intensive outpatient in the jail. There's now intensive outpatient services being provided outside of Arlington County detention facilities. So again, those are kind of places where the agency is expanding and really putting time and effort into that. And our medication-assisted treatment team is putting in a lot of time on the opioid crisis. Our final slide in the performance section of this is the residential. These are, again, kind of exactly where you would expect them to be, that 50 to 55% range, which means very high usage, basically. We projected that we would use almost all of our slots, and we're either using all our slots, we're pretty much using all our slots. We're using withdrawal management, not CAP, especially those two, quite a bit as we work to help folks with treatment. So substance use residential services.
Just to remind the CSB, this is a service that's about a year and a half old now, I guess it is. And previously we had a social detox program with a different vendor. And of course, that's very outmoded. And we shifted with a new RFP to the current vendor. And we also have a shared MOU with Alexandria. And what we have found, it's been very successful and a much utilized program, just about 100% between Alexandria and Arlington. So it's doing very well. Also doing well with collecting Medicaid revenue, right? Without that particular vendor is doing a great job with revenue maximization.
Paul has a question, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, just on the 521, it looks like we're way ahead of projections. Have we had enough space to accommodate people? Have we had to turn them away, or is there wait lists for any of these services?
That would be the 521. Sorry, I didn't get all of that. The 521 in mental health.
No, substance use.
Slide 10.
Are we able to accommodate everyone that needs services? Basically my question. Because it looks like we're way ahead of projection.
In terms of clients, yes, our 521 is ahead of clients. So more folks are accessing that service than potentially expected. Good observation.
I'll check on the wait list issue, Paul. I'm not sure.
These are purchase of service beds, so we are not running wait list on.
Okay, purchase of service beds.
So we contract with National Capital for a 90-day stay, so we refer to them as utilization. Although it's a projection, we don't pay for anything we don't use. So as they accept people, that goes on. So right now, we don't.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Did you say that's Medicaid covered? Medicaid or Medicare?
No, all of this is locally funded.
Oh, local?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, any Medicaid that's collected is going to go directly to the vendor. So the vendor can still
Sure.
Medicaid.
Okay.
And then if an individual has no insurance,
Right, that's where the
that's what
locality.
we pay.
That's right.
The Arlington County will step in and pay for those services if the individual has no insurance.
That's right. Talking about payment.
Nice segue.
And sorry, before we segue to Root Bell, would it be possible to move the phone closer to Root Bell or move Root Bell closer to the phone? I think it might be a little hard for folks on the phone to hear him.
This is my first public meeting, so I don't know if I'm talking loud enough.
No, you have to go closer to the
Okay,
speaker.
I will move.
He's coming down.
Thank you.
All right.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
All right,
Great.
great.
I will turn it over to you then.
All right, so this slide shows the breakdown of CSB expenditures across the 4 major program areas. Overall, we are projected to spend more than we have in 21 and 22, although the percentage expenditure is expected to be roughly in line with what we've expended in the past. Next slide. So this graph shows you a comparison, a multi-year comparison of the percentage we've expended by program area per year from FY 2021 through the mid-year of 2023. As you can see, the expenditures are increasing. Part of that is, in 21, we were in the middle of the pandemic. So, 22, we were, in FY 22, we were on the other side of it, so our expenditure increased as more, the residential beds were more open. In SUD services, you actually had to have one closed. There was different changing requirements. In 23, where, it's hard to see because $1 million when you're doing a comparison of $53 million doesn't look like much, but we're going to spend roughly $1.5 million more in 23, and we're in line to do that as of mid-year. In terms of the SUD residential, it is just a percentage decrease in terms of overall budget, but we have experienced, because of the ARCH changes and a lot of the changes in the state Medicaid, our vendors have been able to collect, more money, from Medicaid or from those sources, which then results in less billing, on the county or less local and grant funded expenditure.
Sorry, can you elaborate on that a little more, like what the changes were?
So a few years ago with the exchanges in ARTS, so folks, they changed the eligibility requirements, so more folks that were in the SUD population were actually able to be covered.
Okay.
And so.
So this was from a few years back.
That's right.
Okay, I was gonna, never mind.
Yeah.
It's a political statement, but found that surprising. Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And on our end, especially in withdrawal management, that's a relatively new program, so therefore we're seeing the benefit, withdrawal management or independent house.
Can I also ask a generic question? Sorry, and I should have asked this earlier probably, and it might be a dumb question, but are youth under 18 included in these numbers or no?
Yes.
Was there any kind of difference in uptick in youth for, like, I know behavioral health, like, is that kind of a spike more than the adult population, or is it kind of just both?
I'm not sure.
I can answer that. So the youth services that you're thinking of would be aggregated with the outpatient mental health services, which are, I think, 310. And we would not see a spike because of the vacancy issue. In other words, so we're not seeing as many clients and we're not providing as many hours of service because we don't have the individuals in those jobs to provide them.
So this is all just services provided, not necessarily demand for services?
It's services provided, not demand for services, yeah. So basically, the state performance this kind of information, the state wants to know, we've given you X dollars, how much, did you provide services in these areas, and how much did you provide, and how many clients did you serve, and how much did you expend? Yeah, it doesn't measure demand. Good question.
Sherry has her hand up online, too.
Thank you, Wendy. So we don't currently get money from private insurance. Is that correct, or did I miss that? I'm not operating on all pistons right now.
Yes, we do. We're going to get to that portion at the end, towards the end of the presentation, but we do get, the county does do some billing directly to clients for the services it's providing.
Not client pay. I'm talking about insurance pay. So,
Yes.
if you're gonna get to
do.
that later, I'll wait.
Okay.
Suzanne, did I cut you off? Or were you done
Nope.
with your question? Okay.
Great, thank you.
All right, next slide, please. Here, we're highlighting a few grants that we've received in the first half of the year. We received a continuation grant for our first episode psychosis FEP program. We also have received what we're calling the MOST funds, just for its acronym, which is Mobile Outreach.
Services team.
The Mobile Outreach Service, yeah.
Good acronym.
We're, outfitting a vehicle and doing all these good, and hiring staff.
We hired the peer, but we still are looking for the clinician. But we're going to do a phased approach. We're going to take the peer and fold that person in with our TOW program, which is our outreach to Treatment on Wheels, which is our outreach to homeless individuals, just to get that person onboarded, trained, and begin those pre-crisis services.
Very cool.
It takes time also, it turns out, to retrofit a van because parts are not available, they don't make them anymore.
Supply chain.
It's just been really very challenging. Go ahead, Lisa, sorry.
The STEP VA services, for case management, care coordination, and psychiatric services, we have gotten notification of award of those grants, and those are all part of the broader systems transformation project that DBHD has undertaken in the last, I think, 2 to 3 years. The same with the STEP VA ancillary services. The state is doing a lot to try to improve its ability to capture data and the cleanliness of that data. And then with that same theme, CSBIT/data infrastructure grant, that we're still in the planning phases of that. But that's really to build capacity and sort of like the back office, if you will, for quality management and data analytics.
Can I ask another question?
Go for it. Yeah, no problem.
So can you just, are these all one-time funding sources? Are they able to be re-upped? And how frequently? Are they mostly annual?
So the first episode psychosis grant is a 2-year grant.
Okay.
And it looks like sometimes the state will fund a program that they are encouraging, a step at a time as they have their ability.
Right.
They funded us our first round for 3 years now. And so this is the second tranche of funding, and what we would expect is that whenever they can, they'll make it ongoing.
And that's state level, sorry?
And that's state funding, yeah. MOST is a federal grant that we applied for, but that is a one-time, and is, and
Good for 2 years.
it's good for 2 years.
Yeah, it was through Don Byers' office, that was the earmark that we
That's
got
right.
last year, that we then had to do the NOFO for
Mhm.
201 pages.
Yeah, and that one it's most of the upfront cost of the van, because how are we gonna pay for the clinician after we?
Well, so it's a 2-year situation, and we are definitely paying for the van through that, but at the end of the 2 years, we will go to the county board with your support to see, if the program is a success. I mean, it's a sort of a pilot,
How many young adults do we currently have in the program?
I'm glad you asked that. The program is full. And I'm really pleased to say that because when I first came to Arlington was the only Northern Virginia CSC that did not have a first episode psychosis program. And folks here said that the numbers weren't there. And I'm like, you build it, they're there. So the program has 15 clients. And I think they've done about 42 assessments for the program. So it's basically full, but it's kind of like as people roll off, they'll be able to take in more, yeah.
And how did that, I remember when that got presented to us, how did that information get out to folks to reach out to the program at first episode of Cycle?
We informed the local advocacy groups in that area. We did a presentation for the county board, the schools. Yeah, it was a full court outreach type of situation, yeah. And then the STEP VA money is actually ongoing. So the case management, care coordination, and psychiatric rehab, which is like our Clarendon House services, ancillary services, and data infrastructure. Those are, well, the ancillary, the ones labeled STEP VA are ongoing funds. And then the data infrastructure, part of it will be ongoing. I believe it's 80,000.
That's right, that's right.
I can't believe I pulled that out of my head. And then the other is like, you know, one-time only funds. So anyway, yeah.
And a lot of, just to add to Deborah's point, like in the case of most funding, in terms of sustainability, you know, when we're doing something on a trial basis, it's been our experience that the state then, you know, will learn something from it and wants to support it after. So, you know, if it works, it's not, it won't necessarily be something that is 100% locally funded. The state will want to apport something to it.
Yeah, and they hired an individual at the state level to oversee first episode psychosis statewide, and so I'm feeling like that's going to be an ongoing priority. Obviously, if you can intervene early, the individual will have a far better outcome.
Plus you got the van paid for.
That's right.
All right, next slide, please.
Oh, I know some shit.
All right, Medicaid collections. We, on average, the CSV's collections have been increasing for multiple years. We, you know, during the pandemic, pretty much stayed flat after a $400,000 increase in FY 2019. We are geared to achieve, you know, at least the 3.5 million in this year's collection, if not more. It tends to be, you know, someone who looks at the numbers month over month, it tends to be that the second half collections are slightly stronger than the first half. So if we've reached that amount, we should slightly, you know, beat the FY 2022 numbers. Some of here, you know, we work, you know, some of the challenges, you know, the EHR and documentation always remain, you know, topics of discussion, and workforce retention, because of course you have to provide the service in order to bill it. All right.
Question about that,
Mm-hmm.
You might have mentioned this earlier. Is it that there's more services that are eligible for Medicaid reimbursement, or that we're doing a better job of collecting them?
Good question.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both, but generally there's more services that are eligible for Medicaid. And, you know, we, with Brian, Michael Dharma, you know, and internal administrative units have been tracking the data of, you know, what's available you know, how many billable units, and doing the work really to get the credentials and all that good stuff that it takes to provide it and to collect the funding. Sherry, did you have a question here? Just to follow up?
No, I just made a statement that not included are the services that Medicaid pays to vendors who provide DD services. So when Medicaid pays this directly to the vendors, it offsets Arlington local expense for these services. So it reduces our expense, which leads to a net impact. So there's quite a bit that's being funded through the Medicaid waiver directly to vendors.
That is correct.
That's exactly right, yeah. So, right, so when you look at indirect, you know, direct and indirect collections, the rate is much, you know, would be much bigger, but for the contract, we just present the direct collections to the state. All right, next slide. So this chart is the mid-year, this is a breakdown of how the CSB is financed rather than by program area. Like previous years, the bulk of the funding is local. 63% of the CSB's operations are supported by the county itself. We have, 7% of it supported by Medicaid, at least in the first half, 1% in other fees, and that'd be, direct client collections or, among other things. Federal grants, about 4% of expenditures are supported through that, and then 25% of expenditures are supported through state grants. The state grant portion might seem lower than what it has been in the past. Well, actually, it's not.
No, it's about the same.
It's about the same, never
Yeah.
mind. And that is despite the state has changed our process in terms of receiving money. We now bill the state as part of a change that happened in this fiscal year. So luckily, we've been able to keep up with our portion. Right, the next slide, please. Oh, go for it.
Question, so it's 0%. Could you give me an example of community partner?
Yeah, so this in particular, we ended a Care First grant. So Blue Cross Blue Shield, and we had a partnership in terms of SUD services in which they grant funded a portion of a position. And so that would be a community partner. Yeah. And here, I think in the reporting mechanism, one thing that I'm going to change for the next time we come before you is probably, the way that Alexandria revenue for withdrawal management is considered. Right now, it's sort of, I think it should be considered part of community partners. And that should be, you'll see that category actually grow substantially. Yeah, yeah. All right, so this is the same sort of concept as the previous slide, but it's a year-over-year comparison. Generally we expect higher expenditures in FY 2023, which is the fiscal year that we're in. And we, despite, I think, some of the, well, I guess because of some of the labor shortages and the operational issues, we're facing an environment with higher expenses. And the great thing is, as you can see over multiple years, our the local percentage is not escalating as quickly as the escalation in cost. And so that, that really speaks to, slide 14, or which one is, slide 13 and 14, which, for us chasing grants, trying to do everything that we can to fund things with other sources.
I like to say we aim to diversify our funding sources to the extent possible.
You haven't accounted yet for any of that money we'll be getting from the statement authority.
Not yet.
Next year's
Yeah.
budget.
Once we start spending it, then it will appear here.
I have one more question. Back to slide 12. If I heard correctly, someone said that we'll have spent $1.5 million more in FY 23. Did I hear that correctly?
In FY 23, we're expected to spend about 1.5.
So where does the money come from to fill that? Just curious.
Part of it, that's what slide 15, comes from it. Much of it will come from, let's say, if we had a position that was vacant, in the previous fiscal year, we had the budget authority, but we did not spend it. This year, since we're spending it, that would be now considered funds expended as opposed to funds that were not spent. So some of it is existing authority, some of it is, you know, if you look at, you know, the grant expenditures, some of it is that we're gonna execute part of that.
Okay.
So that's generally, how it goes. And there, you know, there is a portion of the money that we're budgeted annually, less than 5% of it, but, you know, a portion of it that isn't expended in that year, and those are really for, you know, operational purposes.
You carry that over, in a sense.
You don't necessarily carry it over, but since the budget renews,
Yeah.
you get a fresh new batch, and then you use that, you just use more of the batch that you have.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Good question.
Yeah, great question, yeah. That is what I have for you all. I don't know if you have any questions.
Some of this question is probably pointless to say out loud, but like, I mean, yeah, that is, like, it's 1.5 million over and you're doing like important work, but that's not a situation you wanna keep, like, getting into. So is there kind of a way to change the, like, curve there?
The cost curve?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I know that's a really impossible question, so I'm not trying to like trap you.
I understand the question. Can you?
I don't know, if we're coming up short 1.5 million, then, or no.
We're not,
that's
from the
mischaracterized.
budget, we're not,
Okay.
from the budget, we're not coming up short 1.5 million.
Okay,
We're within the budget.
okay.
The 1.5 is just the increase in cost.
So we're spending 1.5%, or 1.5 million more than the prior fiscal year.
That's what we're
So
projecting.
how much did they give, like, is that a set number, or?
Of the budget?
Yeah, like, cause you said there was a range.
I don't have that information with me.
Okay.
We can, in terms of budget, you know,
I think I can respond to a little bit of what you're asking.
I don't even fully know what I'm asking.
I know, I'm trying to flesh it.
Yeah.
So basically, what I hear Ruth saying is that we're expending $1.5 million more than we did the previous year. But that being said, we have, if you notice on one of those slides, whichever one it was, with the grant, we have 1.3 in grant, right?
So that's all wrapped up in this?
That's wrapped up in this.
Got it.
And then the other thing I wanted to say about that is, usually every year, we have some level of leftovers, if you will, like vacancy savings, for example, you know, and we kind of call that the bottom line. And if we had a delta where there was like, you know, we were spending more in a particular area,
Yeah.
we can move funding from another area unless it's restricted funds.
I get what so this is within the realm of normal, is what you're telling me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
If you, no, if Deborah's good with whistling, I'm usually good with whistling. I just wanna,
Go into the budget next time around?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's right, yeah.
So we developed new programming and new services, but we've identified the funding to support them. I will say one exception is that we are finding that because of the scarcity of licensed providers and clinicians in general, that it is costing us more to hire people. We've had hiring and retention bonuses. We've also, and you've heard me talk about this in the past, reviewed all the classifications to right-size them so that we're market competitive, you know, or at least comparable to surrounding jurisdictions. So, because what's happening is we're all stealing each other's staff. So we're trying to get ahead of that piece. And so what happens in those cases is that as we go through the budget process, and there's a mid-year evaluation of where we are, we kind of talk through that, and the county will fill in that gap for us.
And then in terms of cost controls, you know, I think when we find opportunities to expand services and control costs, we do. I think withdrawal management is an example of that. That program is 10 times more intensive than the social detox that was there, but we are not paying 10 times more for that. Interestingly enough, I mean, I was looking at some numbers early in the week. We are sort of geared to pay the same amount as we did for the social detox by next year. So, so the amount of collections, the contribution from Alexandria, we're getting a lot more for our buck. So, the cost could be high, it would have been higher without having that type of control. So there's things that, you can do in terms of the structure of a contract, how requiring the vendor to do certain things that, like billing, quality assurance, et cetera, that can lead to lower costs. So, those are 5-year, contracts are like last 5 to 6 years. So when we go into an RFP, we're renegotiating all that, and that sometimes takes an element of time. But there are areas that we are saving money. In the same with the studies for the clinicians, the admin, studies that just ended would have, if without any cost cutting in other places, or trying to find those things, those would have resulted in a much higher increase in expenditure than 1.5 million.
Yeah, I think it's going to be much more difficult because it works out to about a 6% increase. When you think about inflation's been over 6%.
Yeah.
With the group homes, that expenditure there just
Yep.
zoomed up. So I think it's going to be tougher next year.
I agree, and the other piece of it is too that, our crisis intervention center, you'll recall that we've added about 19 positions there just on the clinical side, and then 10 SCOPs, and SCOPs alone are $1 million. On the other side, it's more like 5 million, something like that. And so that is a whole new program, 2.5 million, that, we didn't have on the books this year fully. Partly we did, but not fully.
That's right.
So we'll see how it all goes.
And those examples that you just gave are county funded, not state
County funded, yeah. I mean, we will certainly bill Medicaid, but, I anticipate the first year not to really generate a lot of revenue because it's kind of a startup situation, and it, takes time.
We have Sherry has her hand up, and then Ann has a question. And Suzanne, sorry. That's okay. So Sherry?
Thank you. I'd like to note that one of the reasons for the increase is also the fact that we are now paying the increased Medicaid waiver rates for people with developmental disabilities, and that people with developmental disabilities were shut out of services during the COVID, and they've now been, slowly been able to get back into services. So that's one piece. But I don't know if I got my question about what we are doing to pursue insurance payments for substance use disorder, mental health services that are covered by insurance companies, and will help families, will help at least eliminate the financial barrier to families who need these services right now.
Well, we know that our vendor, National Capital and Recovery, does bill insurances directly beyond Medicaid. I can't really answer the question. We don't really have a lot of clients who utilize insurance in our agency because we prioritize the most vulnerable, i.e. individuals with no insurance, individuals on Medicaid, individuals who cannot get services through other options. Do you have more to say on that, Rubel?
I don't know if I'm understanding the question correctly. Are you asking if we're billing third-party payers where we can?
Correct.
Yes, we are. Yeah, I mean, the 3.5 million is a reflection of that. If you look at slide,
He's talking beyond Medicaid.
Yeah, if you look at slide 15, where it says other fees, but so far we've collected $192,000. That would include, that is really what we're billing private insurance. If people have like something like Blue Cross, Blue Shield, and are seeing us, or the self-pay, which is the the sliding fee scale that the county charges for its services. So, but, you know, wherever we can, we try to connect people to Medicaid because that's gonna cover much more of our expenses, our vendors' expenses. But I think, you know, one of the challenges that we face is really, and this is continual and a theme in Northern Virginia, is the eligibility criteria for Medicaid and what's considered living, you know, below, you know, the federal poverty line, et cetera. So that just, you know, it remains a theme within the 5 CSBs in this area.
And one of the pieces that I've been concerned about is for primarily for mental health, substance use disorder, and children and families is the sliding scale. I know that we're only serving the most vulnerable, but I'm also worried about folks that are not accessing services because we don't accept insurance. And I know some of the other CSBs are billing third party. So one of the things I'd like to see in the future, if possible, is another split for what level of fees are being paid by families versus third party non-Medicaid.
Sherry, are you asking to see the sliding scale chart, or you're asking to see
No,
how much
income.
comes in?
Income. How much of this burden for other fees is being paid by families versus third party? I don't care about third party. I do care about families.
Understood. Yeah, that is possible.
Okay.
And
Okay, this is just, it feels like a picky question, but I just don't understand. On slide 15, this is the one that's up, we've got a 0% for community partners. So this is less than 0%, but it's still $54,000. Isn't there a more reflective way to represent the amount? It just bugs me that it says 0%.
I'll leave the decimals going forward. I just, it's when you're going to the whole number, you know. Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's also, it's safer in a presentation where everyone's adding your numbers, you know, to put them all whole, as opposed to, you know, getting decimals in there and tripping up over a decimal point, which has happened at this meeting.
I can understand that. Mathematically, I understand it. It just, as I say, seems odd to be talking about $54,000. 0%.
Keep in all the stereotypes about Arlington. Oh, $50,000, that's nothing.
Who said 50,000 here and 50,000 there? Pretty soon you're talking about real money. That wasn't the.
Oh, boy. I want to call attention to what Ali wrote in the chat. Brian and Rubel, thank you for facilitating our most thorough and detailed discussion of the state performance contract to date. This presentation represents a significant amount of work and preparation, and it is appreciated. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I can't emphasize that enough. Thank you, Ali, for calling that out. What you see on these slides is just heroic, the amount of back work involved in reporting to the state, A, and B, amassing the information in a way that makes sense. And I know we've gone through a lot of iterations in the last years. Staff really worked hard to try to anticipate your questions. The glossary is new, so we hear you and we
I love the glossary.
yes, we hear you and we try to take in your feedback and make it better every year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That said, it's really like Greek, like it's really, it is really hard to understand, so I appreciate all the questions. They're very meaningful to us.
I think we have one more, and Suzanne.
Well, one, just to the point Deborah was just saying, I don't know how malleable this is, but I think the point you made, Deborah, for me, really helped put in perspective that, like, we are doing more in services because we're activating more people and we're meeting a need that was already there, that wasn't met before, but we have the funding for it. Just your explanation for me helps so much. So if there's a way to kind of put that, I think it would help y'all's messaging.
Yeah.
And then ditto for what you were saying about you know, you're finding examples of ways where it would have cost X, but it actually cost Y. Like, I think you guys should just do a job of shouting your own successes, because, you know, I think those were really important, and they weren't per se in here as it was. But I say that as a cheerleader and a supporter. And then with that, and this is another impossible question, so I'm super sorry, but I say it as, like, kind of, you know, like, obviously trying to help you guys. You know, there's this issue we're gonna run into with the Medicaid, continuous enrollment coverage running out.
Yeah.
So I'm just really.
Unwinding.
Yes. So, and then with that, and then there's some talk that would be way down the road, hopefully, but, you know, the Republicans have to magically come up with a budget proposal. Hopefully they just do a continuing resolution, we don't have to worry about it. There's been talk they would bring back Medicaid work requirements, kind of federally and stuff.
Really?
So I don't think it'll happen, but, because it would be like political suicide, but, you know.
Or the federal level.
The federal level, that's why it would happen like at a glacier pace, but I'm just saying, like, and the disenrollment thing is the more timely one.
Yeah.
But so with this chart of how we're increasing, I'm assuming if that were to go away, like, I guess, so if we return to the pre-increase phase, are we still gonna be okay? Is, I guess, kind of my generic question.
I don't know the answer to that because we don't really know exactly how many of our clients will be unwound
Yeah,
in the disenrollment.
right.
What exactly does that mean? I'm not totally familiar with.
So during COVID, there was basically a rule that you couldn't roll people off Medicaid due to lack of eligibility. If you were on at a certain point, you were just on. And so they're right now, we're literally entering into this phase where they're gonna have to start, and it will happen over a year, but they have to start, disenrolling people who no longer qualify. And then there's the scarier background of, like, they can always change, but like how they changed it a few years ago to make it more generous, they can always go backwards, either with a Republican governor or at the federal level. But again, you know, everything moves at a glacier pace. But that, I guess if we applied like before the increase in the NICE funds, if we just kind of applied that number over, I'm wondering if we would be okay.
Yeah, well, Roselle, can you kind of do the rough
And literally no rush, because I know that's a really hard question, but I just want us to be as prepared as possible.
Yeah, and I think that's a really thoughtful approach. So basically, every single person currently on Medicaid has to just basically reapply and have their application reviewed to see if they meet current, financial eligibility.
Okay.
They haven't had to do that now for
It's been a long time.
3 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
And let me just say, the impact on DHS is gigundous because it's so many human beings. We have like 30,000 people in Arlington who are on Medicaid. And we have to redo all of that stuff in the next year. We literally are asking for volunteers to help. We're hiring temps. We're calling our retirees and bringing them back. It's an unfunded mandate.
Can you?
Another unfunded
Do you
mandate.
mind sending that volunteer link to all of us? So we
Yeah.
can send it out to
I
our
was gonna say, we'll volunteer.
Yeah.
That is
Some of us will-
a great idea.
volunteers, temps, jobs, all that stuff, so we can.
Deborah,
Unwinding.
But a lot of our the clients that we serve.
Put it in your budget.
Yes, we just covered.
More fun.
A lot of those folks
That's
are
right.
SSI or SSDI, so does this affect them? Do they have to requalify these folks, or my understanding is, once you have it, you
No,
have it.
I don't think we have to redo those applications.
okay.
I could be wrong, but I think it's the folks on Medicaid,
Yeah,
SNAP and.
yeah, okay, good.
Okay.
Oh, one more question on that. Is there any kind of, like, a graph or something that we can also share with our network, letting us know about the Medicaid, unwinding? Yeah,
I know, I heard, a one-page, like an
I feel that way.
Yeah, like an infographic, so that we know that it's coming, that there's other news that we're like, put back out there.
The DHS, email
Yeah.
that goes out.
yeah, the little newsletter,
Yeah.
but also the website.
And social media. A lot
Yeah.
of people follow the social media page.
News to me. Okay, so website, social media, and distribution.
Yes.
Yeah, I will, that might take me a week to get that done, but yeah. Okay.
Oh,
Do you do Instagram? I think it's on Instagram.
I don't do Insta either.
They're active on Twitter.
All right. That's it.
I think we're at the conclusion of the, performance contract conversation. Deborah already said a wonderful thank you, but I think everyone here, I know that you're online, you can't see us, but we're all smiling and nodding and very happy and very grateful for the time of staff. Thank you for joining us very much. I can never help my case there.
Okay.
Thank you all very, very much. You do not have to stay for the rest of the meeting.
Unless you just want to.
Unless you are
Thank you.
dying.
You guys are impressive.
Spend the rest
Take
of
the rest of the day off.
I will take my leave, but thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Bye, Rubel.
Bye-bye.
Okay, next up on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. Kelly, did you receive any input or changes?
Sherry had made some edits to her bullet points, but it wasn't rearranging wording, that sort of thing. That's all I got.
I saw a couple of typos that sent it to you. Carling Springs. I find that
Carling.
on the first page and the first bullet twice, but everywhere else is Carling. It's fine. Not seeing anyone else indicating their changes. Can we?
One small thing,
Oh, here we go.
the nonprofit is called Arise.
What page are you on?
What's it called?
Arise and Flourish.
Oh, Arise and Flourish.
Think alive. Thank you, Paul.
Instead of the rising.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody on, hands up on? So are we ready for a motion to, adopt the minutes with minor changes? Thank you, Dory. Can we get a second?
Seconded.
Thank you, Ann. Not seeing anyone opposed, not hearing any opposition, we are approving the minutes, from February. Thank you very much. I'm mindful, it's almost 7 o'clock. We're doing a policy tonight, y'all. We are, we're gonna do
You want to skip to that and then go back up to budget?
I think we could do, the policy, and then the budget will go nicely with the chair reports and things.
Good.
I mean, not the chair, the committee reports. Okay, so, we've been looking at the budgets, the policies for a while now, and I know Steve has a statement he wants to include, but right now, with policy number 2, what I would like to say is there anybody who would make a motion to adopt it as amended? And then if not, then we'll open for conversation. Anybody feel comfortable making a motion? This is
When you say as amended, you're talking about with the.
with all, accepting all the changes that are in here.
I will make that motion,
Thank you,
so that we
Joe.
can have a discussion.
You need a second?
We need a second. It's okay to not be, it's okay not to it's okay that we need to talk about it. I'm just trying to see what's the pulse.
I told Buddy second it, starting all the policies.
Oh, got it. Okay. Jeanette can second,
Yeah.
all right. All in favor?
Did Jeanette second, I'm sorry?
Yes, Annette, second. Can you show by show of hands in favor to adopt it, with the,
Without
Were
discussion.
there discussions?
do we have to have discussion?
I thought Steve,
Steve, you're right, thank you, Joe. So is this the point at which you you have anything you want to add?
Well, sure, I can do it now.
Yeah.
Okay, so, for efficiency's sake, except for policy 3, I'm going to dissent on all of them. So for efficiency's sake, we've got a very short statement here, which I will never say again, and in the future, we'll just say, for the reasons back in March 15th. So I'll just read this very quickly, and I gave a copy to Kelly. One member, well, this would be for the minutes, but one member objected to the adoption by the ACCSB of policies that indistinguishably combine summaries of state policies and locally adopted ACCSB discretionary policies. Adopting summaries of carefully constructed state policies as local ACCSB policies distorts the original state policy by glossing over important nuances. Specific wording matters. In addition, as a matter of transparency, the community has the right to know which policies are the responsibility of the ACCSB and therefore are subject to review and revision by the ACCSB. Currently, not even members of the ACCSB know which parts of the new ACCSB policies are their responsibility and which parts are state mandated policies. The member therefore respectfully dissents from the adoption of proposed policy 2. I would just, next time I will say because of that.
Copy?
Period.
Right, thank you, Steve, thank you, that was a really thoughtful approach, I appreciate it. Is there any other discussion or comments before we, call for a vote on adopting policy 2?
so a question to follow up on Steve's point. I thought I remembered seeing references to state law here and there, maybe not in
Yeah.
policy 2, but in
Yeah.
some of the other ones.
Yeah.
There were pointers that said, this comes from state law, blah, 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 or federal law, blah, blah. So if we can either keep those references or reinsert them where they've been deleted, because to Steve's point, if people are confused or if our language glosses over or omits key stuff, at least people who care can read the citation and go to the original source and read the full policy or.
At the link.
Yeah, I think, and that's the purpose of the reference section. Reference.
Yeah.
So we have the purpose and then the references on which the policy is based, right, Kelly? That was.
Right, and on page 7 under, DD, under policy, it has, DDHCS's, website for the reference, which is a reference. And then,
Right. I think in each section.
the Code of Virginia reference is on page 8,
Yeah.
underneath purpose.
Right. And it looks like for DD, the reference was deleted for some reason. I see it over in the right margin on page 7. Right-hand margin has the deleted section with reference, so.
That,
Maybe they don't apply anymore?
no, it's under, what you're seeing in the comments there is under, policy. You have purpose, it starts, purpose to define, and then you have references, shows the reference, Code of Virginia, and then the next section is policy, and those comments on the right are part of the policy section.
Okay, so they haven't been lost altogether, they've just been moved around. So all the references for what we're looking at tonight is at the top of the first page, basically.
Yeah.
Kelly, I'm just saying one thing here. If you'll look at, the substance abuse disorder section, policy, and then, it has the link to SAMHSA
Yes.
under, okay. And then if you look at developmental disability, at the end of the policy, it has a link to DBHCS Virginia.
Do you want to add the SAMHSA link under references?
No, I'm thinking to go back to mental health,
to have symmetry, remember I was always talking about symmetry, we might want to have a reference right there under our policy under mental health that's pertinent, and even if it's a repeat of,
I don't know what you're trying to tell me.
yeah, I'm trying to see it here. I'm just saying, and maybe we don't need it, but, there is a link here under developmental disability, there's a link under substance abuse, they're in slightly different. The developmental disability link comes right at the end of the policy, whereas on substance abuse, it comes in that next sentence. I guess it's because we looked at the language from the SAMHSA right there. I'm just thinking, it would be good to have a reference right in our mental health substance. Like we do
Under
in
mental health?
Yeah.
What,
I know,
what
that's
reference?
the thing, I mean, I'm trying,
Gary, is this not relevant where it
Yeah.
says references? Is that not the same thing that you're talking about?
No, because mental health
Yeah.
is after the references.
Yeah, this is Sherry, and the coverage for mental health is covered in the state statute, not in the broad definition of what mental illness is from NIMH.
Right.
But substance use, it directly references the SAMHSA. So that's why the SAMHSA reference is there.
Right, because they're talking about the block grant program.
Correct, correct.
I see what you're saying and emphasizing consistency.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, could that particular section of code, be listed under mental health?
Yeah.
What code though? What code are you?
There's,
At the top, under references.
So if we have the Virginia code here, there has to be like a subsection in the code that defines mental
Yes.
health.
Yes.
So I think
There is.
that's the point that I'm trying to get at.
Okay, I would have to find it because that's,
Yeah.
for
Yeah,
DD,
that's-
it was
And
specific
that
to
I can help you
DD.
with that, Kelly.
Section definition is supported
Yeah.
by a reference.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
That would be my,
Okay, I get it now.
Right.
okay, thank you,
So
Kelly.
if that is a promise edit, then I'm good with
Yeah.
approving.
Can I ask a couple of quick context questions, sorry, as someone who's not been involved in this? So this was adopted in 2004, so this is just like an update of existing policy to add additional people that aren't currently, that's the point.
So Kelly, do you want to explain the process? Yeah.
Sure.
this is Sherry. Since I was on the committee, we did not add any additional people to the definition. We just, I mean, developmental disability, the title has changed. And as you may recall, Carol wanted to add brain injury or TBI to the list of clients we may serve. And that was not acted upon in the proposed changes.
Well, I guess I'm just looking at like a line here that says adults with serious mental illness with a co-occurring developmental disability, that's new. I'm not- again, I'm just saying that that's
we
what
just
the
edited
changes.
language.
You edited language?
Yeah,
Okay.
to update it, because
But
2004 is,
No, I'm just trying to catch up here.
Is it every 2 years? Supposed to go through this and review
Yes.
and keep it updated?
Yes.
So, even though you see 2004, this is when it was originally written, right, Kelly?
right.
And then every 2 years, it's supposed to be updated and reviewed and updated.
Yeah,
So,
and we should keep track of the dates of the reviews, but I believe,
yeah, I thought your question was, are we working with language from 2004?
No, I'm just trying
Okay.
to like ground myself in what
Yeah.
we're doing
Yeah,
here,
and,
really.
and, you know, some things change, like we,
Yeah.
you know, we've, you know, vetted through staff, we've spent years, what, almost 3 years now
Yeah.
doing this? So, and we're out of compliance, we need to have them.
Yeah, no, I just
Yeah.
wanted to understand
Mhm.
that's helpful context.
Yeah.
And then this background, this big box on the first page, so is that was in there and it was taken out now, or it's added for food for thought purposes? I'm just trying to understand what that is. It is ACSB policy, that individuals.
I think that was a shift, like a copy, we moved it, it was deleted, and then, I don't know. Is that-
No, I think it's just we updated the language in it, I mean, it's,
Like, so does it
It's
include these
wordy.
individuals that don't have a current mental, like, I guess, episode, or does it not include, like?
which party?
Like, this whole box, to me, the summary is that
the whole point that you're getting treatment is you're not having these crisis moments of acute mental health, but that by therefore not having them, you don't qualify anymore under the definition, is I think the person's point. I think that's a valid point. I'm just asking you all, as people who've been involved in this, if that point is reflected in this version or not, because I'm confused why it's in a box on the side.
Yeah, I think it's been shortened, and you'll see it, on the first page, where
Okay.
it's talking about, 1, 2, 3 individuals who were determined to have serious mental illness, but are now stable and no longer meet the criteria, require necessary services to maintain their stability.
Okay, perfect.
I think that is a shorter
Right.
phrasing of what you
Right.
see in the recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
It's been such a long time since you and I have looked at this, that it's just, I'd have to literally reread
Yeah.
every word again to be impressed.
I think looking at the substance use disorder portion, I'm not going to seize that, right? I just went through it quickly.
Okay.
Is there a reason it says, oh, okay, no, sorry, ignore.
Okay, are we poised on the edge of actually approving one?
I love when you
Oh, my
said
goodness.
it. Voice on the edge. That was good, Deb.
We can do it, we can do it.
So it's extremely important because this will help in the refinement process, which I'm sure will be,
Yes.
coming.
Yeah.
And, so I think all the comments that are being made, including Steve's concern overall, they will have their place in the refinement process. And,
Yeah.
just want to emphasize that that will be important at that time.
And thank you for saying that, Jeanette. And so our goal is to get into compliance and then continue to refine on a more regular basis and bring in some more of the finer points like Steve has raised and others have raised. But for now, the most burning issue is to get ourselves into compliance. And these are not.
We are way out of compliance.
Yeah, and so with that, having heard a few people, thank you for the reviews. Are we ready to try to take a vote? So we have a motion, we have a second. So Jeanette seconded it, Joe started it, Jeanette seconded it. So now we are ready, after discussion, to show hands to say, we're prepared to
I
approve.
can't see their hands.
They don't get to vote anyway, because
Yeah,
they're.
no, they do.
They do?
They do,
Yeah.
it's their members,
Yes.
yeah.
I found that out when we did it
Okay.
at the last meeting.
They can raise their hands.
So if you're online and voting, please raise your hand, and if you want to support adopting the policy number 2 with the edits as shown on the hard copy or on your electric copy, which was with the invite. Or you can put in the chat, I vote yes, Sherry's a yes.
Angela.
And then, okay, so let's count, we have Sherry,
Are we counting how many, but can we do a nay then, and I can?
yes, we're gonna do an
Okay.
A after we count the yays.
Okay.
These are yays, all right, so we got Sherry online and then in the room, we have 1, 2, I'm gonna not count myself, 1, 2, 3, excuse me, for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in the room, plus Sherry is 10 yays. Oh, and here's, Angela also says yay, thank you, Angela. And now,
Anna?
Sherry and, Angela, please put your hands down, and then now we're gonna ask, are there any nay votes in the room or online? Please raise your hand. Anna may be a no. Yes, thank you, Steve.
Is Anna abstaining?
Steve. And Anna, I don't know if you're there, if you're abstaining. She may have stepped away from her.
She had to do something,
Yeah,
while
she
we
may
were in the
have to.
meeting, so.
So we have enough to pass even if she is a nay. So, yay.
Congratulations,
Yay.
Madam Chair.
That's all of us.
Can I ask a really dangerous question?
Yeah.
This is and maybe I've just been out to lunch, but I don't remember us doing a whole lot of these. Is this, how many policies do we have?
We have 22.
Okay.
They're not.
I won't say anything if you won't, I don't care, but I'm challenged.
We kind of went down a rabbit hole in November, maybe December, when we were talking
It was
about
a
this.
year
a lot.
ago, wasn't it?
Oh, my God.
Not that long ago, but but yeah.
I mean, like, I'm cool if you're cool.
Well, some of them are a lot simpler than,
Yeah.
like, number 2 was a lot of work.
Yeah.
This
Gotta
is a
start
simple
small
one.
and work our way up. to
Let's
the bigger.
let's see if we can do 3 at 7:14.
Motion to approve.
Thank you. All right, yay.
Make a motion.
Paul's a second, yay. Any comments? Any, 3,
Policy 3 is on the last page.
Oh, that's a separate policy.
Let's do
Yeah.
the policy about our policies.
Yeah.
It's giving us the definition of a policy compared to a procedure. It's a 1-page, almost half a page. All right, no comments, no, all right, so let's see if we can have a show of hands, having 2 motions. How many, are yay to adopt? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, unanimous in the room. And then online, we've got Angela and Sherry. Both, thank you very much, online. So, we have passed 2 policies. I'm so excited.
From the next one, I should have brought the next
No.
one.
It's like, I feel like it's roulette,
We
you
have
know,
like
something like we're
one
doing.
more stuff to talk about, and we
Yes.
don't have a lot of time.
Yeah, so we are ready now. Thank you, everyone, for that. The budget update.
Oh, yes.
Yes?
And we can pass it.
For those of you who, are unaware, we did our budget work session, for DHS on, I don't even remember.
March
what-
9th.
Huh?
March 9th.
March 9th. And, it was like a 3.5 hour, 4-hour odyssey where there was, CPHD went first, and then there was a combined presentation, CPHD and DHS around housing, because there's an enormous amount of money that is going into housing opportunities, in Arlington. And then the final piece was the DHS part. And, quite frankly, we got truncated to about 45 minutes, so we had to be super pithy. If you did not see the presentation live, it was streamed. If you did not see that, we do have the PowerPoint presentation, that Anita and I did, which I realized we did not, did we circulate the,
I sent it.
the DHS PowerPoint?
Oh,
Okay, make a
I'm
note.
not
We will
sure.
circulate the DHS
I think so, but I'll check.
PowerPoint presentation. But what I will do is, what I did do is I just pulled out some CSB highlights in this little tiny PowerPoint, and I should add an additional slide. But let me tell you in like 1 minute or less, the CSB, well, let me just say, as you know, it was predicted that there would be a real crunch for funding in this year, and it was going to be a tight budget year, which really upended our whole budget process. But several other Arlington departments did have reductions. The only reduction, we only had 1 reduction in DHS, and we got significant additional funding. So it was actually quite stunning, like I'm still blown away by it. And I think there's more coming. So let me just quickly summarize, and you can ask whatever questions you might have. So, in FY '23, if you go to actually the 6th slide in this little PowerPoint, we, during the year, the Department of Management and Finance added 15 clinical positions for the Crisis Intervention Center. This is in addition to the $500,000 already spent. So we're spending $2.2 million just in clinical staff at the CIC. That's annually. And these positions were actually funded in last year's budget with ARPA money and federal money And the county just decided, yeah, we're gonna make this ongoing, otherwise we're gonna face a fiscal cliff, and this is important enough to stabilize these positions, because it's really hard to hire for, grant-funded positions that are not forever. They added the market alert coordinator as a permanent ongoing position. They added $250,000 to build out a developmental disability community-based day support and employment program, which will be in this building on the 4th floor, and opening hopefully July 1st, a peer specialist and some other non-personnel funding. So now, if you go back to slide 2, these are the things that are in the county manager's proposed FY24 budget. Reminder that there's a process that you all are very familiar with, and the county board will be voting on these items, the whole budget, in late April. So what do we have in the manager's budget? We have almost $1 million for the conservators of the peace contract. This is for 24/7, 2 staff per shift, to accept custody of individuals who are under an emergency custody order, and also to be able to transport those individuals, freeing up police. $200,000 that's the revenue needed to operate the new 1212 Urban Group Home, which is opening which will be completed the first week in April. We will do an open house, and you will all be invited in June before the clients move in, hopefully in July. And then $125,000 to operate the program I just told you about that's opening on the 4th floor. And then because DMAS increased its rates for residential, we had to increase our local match, which came to $412,000. That slide alone comes to $1,678,538. Then if you go to slide 3, the quality assurance manager is actually for our economic independence division, so we will disregard that, although it's important. We are adding a therapist to our office-based opioid treatment program. The demand for this program is enormous, and we are going to include adolescents 16 and older, which is the youngest age we can provide legally those services. We're adding a security coordinator. Why? Because we have security in our buildings, as you know, and then we are adding the SCOPs, and frankly, it's a lot of security, somebody's got to manage them. The child care specialist is really child and family services, so disregard that. We are hiring a consultant for our OBOT program to really ensure we're doing best practices and to get, frankly, alignment between the prescribers and the clinicians. Sometimes there's conflicts around that. And then there's also money for food security grants, which is important to our clients, but I'm not going to include that in my overall number. And eviction prevention. You would not believe how much money we have spent during this pandemic on eviction prevention. Like in a regular year, pre-pandemic, we'd spend $1 million. We spent $9 million last year. So it's completely been a budget buster. And without that, a number of individuals, including our clients, would be forced to leave the county.
Do you have a breakdown of which of those were state versus federal versus local funds?
I do, but I don't have it on me or in my brain.
No
I can get that to you another time. Wendy, would you just make a note to get that to Adele? Give me a few days on that. The one reduction that we have is for Job Avenue, and this really is not so much a service reduction, but an alignment of staffing with the number of clients served. So we would be reducing Job Avenue by almost 193,000, which is a contracted service through PRS, and it would decrease our contractor staff from 6.5 to 3.8. Our clients have decreased in this program. I think we talked about this in the mental health committee, didn't we?
Yes.
Our clients have steadily decreased from 313 to 80, and that's a reduction of 75%. If this reduction is accepted, the average caseload would be 21, which is well within the maximum caseload allowed or encouraged by SAMHSA for this kind of program. So while I was noodling this, I kind of did some back of the envelope, back of the PowerPoint math, and looking at the additions that are specific to the Community Services Board, including the additions to the FY '23 base budget and the county manager's proposed budget, the above base amount that the county is adding in local net tax support to the CSD budget is $4,810,513. What is being reduced is $192,885. I get a total of $4.617625 million. So basically 4.6 million, okay? Added to our base budget. Now, there's more. First of all, that's if the county board accepts all of that and approves it. I will say, however, that they are not asking for justifications. They're like, we know what the needs are, and oh, can you do more? Especially in the area of child and adolescent services. So, there is an interest in, well, two things. One is there is an interest in our providing treatment, substance abuse and mental health treatment in the school. Literally, kids have come to the Congressman, Don Beyer, and asked him if we could do that. I just found that out on Sunday. So there is some press in that area. We do not have, the options are we can take some of our vacant positions and, you know, shift them to school-based positions. We have a lot to work out. We have to do an MOU, and Wendy's involved with that. We have to figure out a whole bunch of stuff around that. It's complicated. But the other option is to add positions. So none of that is in this budget as of this time, but is potentially something that the county board might consider as they do their horse trading in over the next few months. The other thing that's going on is, and Paul and I have had some dialogue around this, is that there are 3 pots of opioid abatement authority funding. And there is a pot that's like a partnership pot of money that you do regionally. And the regional management group for Northern Virginia, which is the 5 community services boards and the regional office, identified the need, one of the most significant gaps, of course we never had to have it before, is for medical withdrawal and substance use residential services for adolescents, which we have none in the Northern Virginia area. So we have been working behind the scenes now for about 6 months on costing it out, scope of work, developing a request for proposal. This is like, as our regional management group, we meet every week for about 3 hours. And we are about to issue the RFP. It'll be coming out through the Fairfax Purchasing Office by the end of this month, I believe. And so to fund that, to seed those services, do the startup, well, let me just say it's about a $7 million project, okay? And so we're basically looking at 3 pots of funding. One, we've already, and this was another kind of behind the scenes thing that we did, is we worked on, we received a grant opportunity. It was for Region 2 and Region 5, and it was for about $500,000. Although I have to say, let me be clear, it wasn't clear whether it was for both regions or in split half. It wasn't clear. So we just wrote our proposal and sent it in, and we'll see what happens with that. But so we wrote a proposal to the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services. Then we started working towards our partnership OAA grant, and that is due before May 5th. And you have to have commitment from all 5 jurisdictions. which means that, you know, you're talking, in our area, you're talking county manager, county board, Fairfax is the board of supervisors, right? And, you know, like, this is a really complex thing that we're putting together. However, and then what we determine is we use Weldon Cooper's population calculation, and so we're dividing it up proportionally among the 5 jurisdictions. Our share would be 9% of the population, and so that would be $180,000. Oh, I should say the locality is determined about 2-something million, okay? So our portion would be $180,000 annually for the next, let's say, 5 years. That's what we're putting. And the grant would be for $5 million, more, about $5 million. So anyway, all of that is going on. So that $180,000 local match would also have to be added to the FY '24 budget. So that is my short summary of the budget. Congratulations, CSB, y'all did super well this year, again.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
you.
you.
Wow.
Thank you, and thank all of the staff. Before, I'm gonna make a quick comment, like, that was one of the longest meetings I've ever been in. I had a crucial headache by the time we got to our turn, and
I
it
was
was just like.
dehydrated, and then I had a contact lens contact lens emergency right in the middle, and I was like, I just have to take this thing out. It was awful.
But I did hear Mark Schwartz say before he introduced,
He did a speech.
he did a little spiel and said, this is what we have, and there will be more, is what I heard him say.
Yeah.
Like, this is
Yeah.
what we're putting forward now,
Yeah.
but there will be more. I was like, well, why am I here?
I know.
It's already like
I know.
rolling. And I think as we, in a minute, when we talk about our, and I know I'm not a lobbyist, I was being funny. I was but I think when we talk about, I think we do want to frame our time around that appreciation for that, for this whole thing. So anyway, but Joe, you wanted to say something.
Well, yeah, I guess that is a bit of a segue into what each of the committees is
Yeah.
contributing to this,
Yeah.
2x2 next week. I'm seeing on that slide number 6, there are additions to the FY '23 base budget. Those are among the things that Steve and I flagged are included. I know the USD clinical positions weren't included, your specialist. Those are still part of the ask for '24, even though they're additions to '23. Am I right about that? I want to make sure we're not putting the wrong.
I think that what I would do with that is, I would say, thank you for your support of the clinical positions in the CIC. You understand they're permanent, ongoing, or they've been added to the base. The ones that aren't added to the base are the HESCOP, the conservators of the peace, and, yeah.
Is it important for us to distinguish? In other words, these are all things that we're thanking them for and we're noticing.
I don't think you have to distinguish. They're
Okay.
very,
I wanted to make sure we didn't put the wrong stuff.
Yeah.
in, that's all.
And Deborah, speaking of that, so when we say we're adding stuff into this, like at what stage are we at here?
okay, so the county manager presented his proposed budget like February 24th. And then we go into the budget process where we have budget work sessions. Each department has budget work sessions. Then, there's just like an amazing amount of work to prepare for that. And then we have, and the CSB meets with the county board members to talk about needs and current, future, whatever needs, and do their advocacy and, gratitude for, their support. And then there's gonna be a public hearing. Kelly, I'm blanking on it.
I have my computer off.
Isn't it the 28th, the 27th and 28th?
There's going to be a couple of public hearings, here we go. The budget public hearing is March 28th. Typically, we do have a CSD member, typically the chair, I hate to say, makes a statement at that meeting of some type. I'll help you with that.
Thank you.
And then they have a tax rate hearing on March 30th, and what I have heard so far is that they want to have no increase in taxes. Has anybody heard anything different? So anyway, so that's a separate hearing. And then the county board will vote on their budget in late April, and I have the date, I think it's like April 20, that's Tuesday.
So is that, like, what's the pencils down moment, I guess, is my question? Because I feel like we said that we were adding, there might be things amended to this, or is that inaccurate?
No, it's not inaccurate. I would say pencils down is probably a month from now.
Okay.
I mean, it goes to the last, it pretty much goes, yeah. The other thing that happens is, like, if the county board members have a specific question for us, sometimes that will get sent, and then we have to respond to that.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
So, and then speaking of that, I mean, the obviously biggest number here is the 3 million for the eviction. So can you just provide more context about, like, how many families you're helping, or do you think it's gonna continue
That
at
actually,
level, or is it going down, or, cause
Yeah.
I feel like from a budgetary standpoint, they're gonna zero in on that pretty quick.
yeah, that actually was in our budget presentation, and what, Kelly, if you could make a note, what we'll do is we can send the slides, I think it was the housing presentation. I didn't bring all my budget stuff with me. Sorry.
Following up is always
Yeah,
perfectly fine.
yeah, but, we actually have a one-pager that shows exactly what Adele is talking about. I anticipate that the county board will support that, and I anticipate that it'll be very much needed because, so many people are kind of falling off this fiscal cliff for various.
No, I'm just trying to strengthen if we get asked questions on it.
Yeah.
Like, is the marginal rate of people needing it decreasing? I would imagine, no.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
It's always been there, but I know on the state level, we didn't have anything that was just permanent until right around the pandemic.
Yeah.
So that's why I was asking about the breakdown, because I think one of the pieces of advocacy that needs to happen on the local level is to go to the state and say, we need more money for this.
Yeah, I agree with
And
that.
I will tell you, I know this is not my area that I oversee, but I will tell you one thing that happened this year was that people applied through the state portal,
Yeah.
and they got approved,
Yeah.
and the state ran out of money,
Mm-hmm.
and so these people were already approved, and so we had to step up and take the money from our bottom line.
And Arlington had it in place before the state did.
Right.
So, yeah, there's a lot that needs to happen on the state level in investing in.
But so is this just like perennially 3 million to the budget?
In an average year, it's 1 million.
But there's no sign of returning to that in the near future?
Not yet.
Okay.
Unless you get housing stability or housing.
Yes.
Yes, oh.
So, and I kind of hard stop this at the very first half. But, you know, going back to that regional grant, you know, I spoke to the Opioid Abatement Authority. They said the complete pot of money for that, for the state's gonna be like 14 to 15 million. So I'm guessing, was there 5 regions?
Yes, there are 5 regions.
We might get 3.5 million, maybe more around there, just because of population density. But,
Yeah, because we're 30%.
we're not gonna get, you know, we're not gonna get 5 million. And, in the last executive committee meeting, we discussed that there are different needs, including housing, and, I just think in the future, especially, however that process happens, where the, you know, the 5 counties decide what to go for collectively, that, you know, the SUD committee have more input there. And I don't expect you to do that advocacy necessarily. I'm happy to do it. But I feel like this, I know it's kind of a short timeline, there's first round, but there's other needs, and, I passed around a, proposal, an example of where we could use like a nonprofit, and for about $100,000, get another recovery house. So I just think in the future, we need to look at how we have to with that process.
Yes.
But I know the need is great for the, medicated withdrawal medication for young people. I have no
Yeah.
argument with that. But there's other needs, and this is kind of time money to, address, recovery, treatment, prevention, everything.
Right. Duly noted, and I do believe that there is more money coming down, but yes, we will keep you in the loop, and I hear the need for the recovery housing, sure.
So, thank you very much. This is basically the talking points for the 2x2. I feel like it's a, I don't know, 2x2. Anyway, the meetings that each of us are gonna have with the individuals from the county board. So I am looking at this, I feel really comfortable. Is there anything, I don't wanna necessarily go through it verbatim, but if any of the chairs want to, highlight or point out anything, that would be welcome. I see Steve is eager to say something.
And I did reword some things, because when Wendy starts, like under y'all's, it said about, the CSB and the mental health committee support, whatever. That's, Wendy's gonna say that this is, the CSB's gonna say, I took just that wording out.
Yeah.
But you're more than welcome to say that when it comes to your time to speak.
And I just wanted to suggest that the, ICC services, that needs to be shortened if.
I was just gonna ask, what's the time for this?
The first meeting is next Wednesday.
No, I'm sorry, I mean, like,
How long
time do you have to
do we
stay
go
on?
to talk?
Oh,
Each chair.
what? Yeah, they're hour-long meetings. I think we said, what do we say? It's in the minutes, one of the minutes.
Oh, so this is for the meetings with the board,
With the
not,
county board.
not,
You don't
Wendy's?
get 10 minutes. It's like,
Each.
it's like 5
County
to,
board members.
it's like 5 to 6 minutes
Okay,
total for each.
got it.
Are you
That way you
gonna
have time for questions
emphasize
from the board.
need for recovery houses when you,
Oh, yeah, we're gonna talk about things that are going on. Cool.
okay.
Are you gonna send me something? Because I wanna
Yeah.
send them something.
Yeah, putting together some stuff, and, Daniel and I are gonna share.
Okay, cool,
Oh, great.
presenting.
cool.
You guys will be a great team.
So, do any of the rest of you know who is gonna present with you?
Anna will present on the, first day. So on the first day, we'll be Anna and myself, and Jane, seminar, and then the third day, just go.
Okay, hold on.
Which is the Friday, right?
The first day is Anna, just Anna?
Anna and me.
And yeah?
Anna and Steve, right? First day.
I can-
Second day, Steve and Joe. Third day, just Joe. Okay, got it.
Okay.
Sherry's asking if they got these handouts electronically.
Not this one yet.
Are you, Paul, you're doing it, all 3 of the days, or no? Do you know?
Yeah,
Okay.
And Daniel can as
And-
well?
And Daniel, you and Daniel, all 3?
Friday, I might have Daniel just do it by himself.
Okay.
Okay.
Change some things in the schedule.
I'll just make sure that you both have the invite,
Yeah,
so you know, can get in.
yeah, I'm gonna meet with him Friday and finalize this.
Okay.
Very good.
Yeah, because I'll still have to make any edits that you guys need and get that out, so they have time to look at it before Wednesday.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you.
Sherry, do you know who's going to present? Oh, it's you and Bertha, right?
Yes,
Yes? For all 3 days?
yes.
Is that right, Bertha? Bertha.
I'll just
Can
make
you-
sure that you both have the invite, but I do want to let them know who they're going to be speaking with, so they're not like, oh, who are these people?
Oh, and by the way, this is all virtual, correct?
Yes, all
Yes.
virtual.
And then, for child and youth,
Yeah.
is, you and Asha, or are you able to come to any? I'm not,
What, I don't know what,
fine.
sorry, I haven't been.
From, from the minutes, you'll see, the dates and times.
Quick edit right there.
Okay. And it's, March 22, 23, and 24, 1 to 2 o'clock on the first 2 days and 2 to 3 on the last. And it's okay, Suzanne, because no, you can do them? Oh, wonderful.
Latter end of the week is my easy.
Fantastic. So, I don't know.
I don't have to though, it's not like y'all need to, I mean, whatever.
I think you're wonderful in these, so I'm
So just,
really grateful.
so just you and
And Asha.
Asha.
and Asha, okay. Okay. All right, cool.
And Wendy, I'd ask if there's something, not anything new, but something that already exists, like for the SCOPS, like maybe it's in the slides, but just something that has a little background. So, I mean, we've been hearing about SCOPS for a long time. So when we're sitting there talking to a board member, I'd like a little more information.
What kind of information do you need? I'll get it to you.
Like to answer questions.
Right.
Well, you know I'm gonna be there.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna be in
Yeah.
every meeting.
Yeah.
So if there's any, if there's,
SCOPS,
yeah, if there's any questions, like on technical details, like I'm not there as an advocate, just to be clear, that would be an inappropriate boundary. But if there is a factual, technical question, you can turn it over to me.
I just didn't feel comfortable
Yeah,
discussing the SCOPS
yeah, it's
program
complicated.
with the board members.
Complicated.
Anna had a question.
I'm sorry, yeah, Anna, I'm sorry, yeah. Does she? I don't see any.
She said I didn't see
It's
it.
the same thing though, over the handout.
Yeah, we'll send it out.
I haven't sent the other handout. I had just finished it and printed it right before we came downstairs. So I'll send that.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Joe, for catching that, because I didn't see it in the
Thank you,
chat.
Kelly.
Do you need to touch on any executive reports?
Yes, I'm going to talk really fast, but I do have some information to share. One is with regard to Virginia Hospital Center's proposed plan for Carlin Springs. We have been partnering with the Virginia Hospital Center on a number of meetings. I think we did one for boards and commissions, one for the community, one for Glen Kerman and Forest Glen Leadership, Civic Association Leadership, one for the Glen Carlin Civic Association and Forest Glen Association, and also a meeting with Voice. So what I am pleased to report is that there is zero pushback on the need for the service or even having a behavioral health and rehabilitation hospital in their backyard. Really. There are questions about things like, and this might be a little code for anxiety, but, you know, questions about security and safety and what are the plans, and of course, you know, of course there's gonna be a plan for safety and security. So, and the other thing that's really come up a lot in all of these various meetings is the link to nature and the community wanting to ensure that the hospital, you know, has connectivity to the Long Branch Nature Center and they're actually requesting these bird windows where like birds won't fly into them and smash down. And I don't know what that's called, but there's a name for it. And also having like, using the rooftop and having like that be like for chimney swifts, which also are birds. Anyway, so all of that is ongoing, and the hospital has to work on their 4.1 site plan, and they anticipate that should be done by the end of May, beginning of June, is what I heard. So we're in kind of a lull here, and then the whole site plan amendment process will begin after the staff have their 90 days to look at the project. There is a ton going on with regard to our collaboration with APS. I won't get into all the details, but in short, we have a meeting just, it feels like every day. We are talking about an MOU to provide services, and what it might look like if we could have a school, DHS school mental health APS program. I already mentioned about the OAA grant. There's a lot of work being done on that. We're working on, the contract with National Capital for outpatient and intensive outpatient services. We submitted the Senate application for the opioid response, I think it was Friday. Newsflash today, you know, the opioid emergency boxes, we have one right over here. We finally got the Department of Parks and Rec on board, and they're gonna install them in all their rec centers and
It's
all.
out in the hall.
And all the park rangers are gonna carry Narcan, and we're gonna train all of them, so mostly it'll be mandatory, but some will be optional anyway.
Is it also gonna be in the libraries?
It's already in the library. Libraries were first, a year ago.
Yeah, I was gonna say NPR just did a story today on how apparently like librarians are having to be unfortunately like first
Responders, yeah. So, yeah, we did that about a year ago, so that's a really big deal. And for those of you who didn't see, Ari was featured on the CBS Evening News. I think McKelly may have sent the clip around, but that's just phenomenal. And then there's gonna be a school board, county board work session on the 31st, and I understand I'll be presenting something or other with Daryl. I don't know what that'll be exactly, but we've started working on that. Last night I spoke to the Civic Federation with the police chief and the Commonwealth attorney, and it was about crime, so I had to destigmatize the link between crime and mental illness, and also talk about all the things that we're developing to address behavioral health and substance use. I think that's,
What a whirlwind.
it's been a very intensive night.
I think you should add a wine line item to the budget.
Is that unbelievable?
Might be necessary.
A wine item.
What a missed opportunity.
I'm writing that down, a wine item.
I think, Mr. Schwartz would like that, don't you?
He is so corny. He had the worst pun when we came out of that meeting, but I was in such a blur that now I can't remember it.
Yeah. Well, you remembered all the important things, Deborah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I will send around information. Kelly has already sent around about the OAR breakfast, so I'll follow that up. Hopefully, the hope is that people will consider attending. It's a wonderful event, but I'll send that by email. And as far as I'm concerned, we are ready to.
I had one more thing.
Oh.
I just wanted to say that in addition to everything else that I mentioned, there have been innumerable school, various evening community conversations at various schools. I know Paul has gone to like every one of them, and to the extent we actually find out about them, sometimes we don't, we have tried to have DHS staff present. I know I did one, and I think other staff have done.
They have.
Yeah.
They have been.
Yeah.
Great.
I've done
So,
some community ones in DHS.
yeah, so it's been quite a season.
Can we please get a motion to adjourn? So moved. Oh, we got no problem getting those. They're everywhere. Not hearing nobody opposed, we are adjourned. Thank you.
All right, guys, I'm hanging you up.
Thank you, Ollie. Thank you, Anna. Thank